All right, everybody, welcome back to another live stream, second live stream of the day, and a pretty important one. We've got, of course, the U.S. presidential elections here happening tonight. And of course, this is a volatile event, as we can all see. If you were watching the markets today, things were all over the place. I know emotions are high for many people as they watch these sort of events, as people want, their candidate to win, or, so on and so forth. But my goal with this live stream is to give you guys a little bit of a market watch here in terms of the U.S. presidential election. I want to preface this as you join here with me to understand something, that I am by no means a professional on tracking the election. I am here, like many other people, a novice at trying to fully understand the complexities of the voting system. There are people who know far more out there, and if that is something that you are really looking out for here this evening or this afternoon, wherever you are in the world, I would encourage you to watch a different stream. Now, that doesn't really help my YouTube channel, so don't leave. But if you're looking for more of a, sort of a trading perspective, that is going to be my goal here to help tonight, is to give a little bit of a conceptual overview of how the night is shaping up, how it's moving markets, so on and so forth. So what we need to know here is that first and foremost, stocks were higher here today, and we didn't get some sort of significant decision in the betting markets as to who is favored. The reason I bring that up is because if we're taking a look at the overall probabilities of who's going to be the president, who's not going to be the president, and we see then that you've got a favored candidate, then the election or then the market makes a move in response to that, then that would tell you that the market kind of has a favorite. But today, what we still see is that the election odds so far at the time of us doing this stream are still undecided. There's not a a clear favorite in this running at this time, according at least to some of the betting sites that I've been looking at. Which, if you're asking why betting sites, why keep an eye on them? Well, because the betting sites, I had this conversation with some of my team members at the office today. We were discussing the idea that the betting markets take a lot of people's emotions out of it, and they just really kind of show where the money is betting the winner. And so the reason that is important here is that when you have pretty even odds, man, it's pretty close, and yet the market rallied anyways. What I think this might have been was a bit of the positioning stuff that we discussed earlier on today. I want to show this chart again because I think it has increased interesting meaning. The put call ratio shows a very heavy preference in the last few days for puts on the options market. Now, when we talk about the put to call ratio, and you see this number very high, what this is telling you is that the overall demand for puts greatly outpaces the demand for calls. Remember that puts are bearish bets on the market, and many use the puts contracts, put contracts, or options in general, as a way to hedge their portfolio, as a way to buy insurance, if you will. Now, this is interesting because the demand for insurance is very, very high, clearly by this chart. That, or people think the market's going to crash, one or the other. But I think it's more likely the former. I think the most likely scenario is people are uncertain about where this presidential election is going, and what this could mean is that people are bracing for impact. They're bracing for volatility. So when we talk about the betting markets being real close, and I've got this map here where we're seeing some early, action here already. You've got a couple states reporting: Indiana, Kentucky, and Vermont coming in here so far, but it's very, very early in the evening. We may or may not know who the winner of the presidential election is by tomorrow morning. We might not. Under my limited scope of understanding of how this election process functions, basically, Long story short, if you have a very decisive winner, we'll probably know by tomorrow morning. But based on the betting odds being so dang close, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't know the winner until tomorrow afternoon. It could take even longer, depending on how close the election is. Now, if it's a big victory for Kamala Harris or a big victory for Donald Trump, then we might know by tomorrow morning. And I'm not going to try and sit here and make a call as to whether or not I think one of them is going to win or the other, because again, look at the betting odds. This is derived by people who this is all they do is study the betting odds. They study, just how I'm a specialist, I think, of trying to understand macroeconomics and trying to focus on currencies or commodities or indices. Like, that's kind of my niche. I know better than to try and call who the presidential nominee is going to be. So we have a pretty close betting odds market. What I think is a very interesting thing is that despite the unclear favorite, stock market went up today. And I think that sets the tone for where we could go from here. And I've been saying this for a little while. Whether you get Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, it does seem like likely the stock market wants to make a move higher and is ready to shrug off this uncertainty event. When I say uncertainty event, what I mean by that is we don't know who the president's going to be. That spooks a lot of people. And a lot of corporate spending is sitting on the sidelines waiting. Now, let's back up and talk about that for a second. What did I just say? In recent earnings calls, many of the S&P 500 companies have mentioned the election as a pausing point, waiting to hear who the next president is going to be in order to make some corporate action decisions. What does that sound like? That sounds like once this is out of the woods, more spending, more activity is likely to resume. That to me is a bullish catalyst. And I've been, on the record of saying I am bullish on the market. I've been bullish on the market all year long, pretty much. I've been cautious at points, but right now I feel that we have enough reasons to stay convicted, stay bullish, regardless of who the presidential candidate is. That out of the way, now we can talk about some areas that might move more or less depending on who you get. One of the more obvious plays, in my opinion, is that if you get Donald Trump winning the election, likely the Russell 2000, which is smaller companies, are likely to see more upside. Because, again, this concept of the tariffs, let's talk about the tariffs for a second, right? The tariffs are highly controversial amongst just about everybody, but also specifically economists, right? Some people think they're great. Some people think they're awful. The thing is, one thing is relatively clear to me, which is that if you get Trump tariffs coming into the picture, that puts this weird dynamic on international trade and companies. But what does that mean for domestic companies? Manufacturing companies in the United States might actually benefit from that scenario, which the Russell is very comprised of domestic companies. So when we're thinking about this, one Trump trade that sort of makes sense to me would be the IWM, the Russell 2000 index, is something that I'm watching myself. So that's a possible scenario, but we have to be prepared for both directions, right? What if Kamala Harris wins? What could we look for in that scenario? And again, we can think about this from a perspective of, we don't know, and that's okay that we don't know, but where do we want to be potentially willing to trade? Now, for me, it really comes down to focusing on sectors, focusing on pockets of the market that are more or less sensitive. One thing, there's some differences that we can look at, but there's more things I think that we can look at that are the same between the two candidates. This is one that I've just completely worn this topic out, but I will wear it out once more just for you. The 10-year Treasury yields are rising, right? This is because both presidential candidates are likely to spend a lot of money, right? Both of them have track records of spending a lot of money. And I preface this with, you may like or dislike the way that each candidate spends money, but they both spend money nonetheless. So if you get Trump, if you get Harris, it's likely that they're both going to spend a lot of money. So my point with sharing that with you is that, okay, what does that tell us? Well, it tells me to stay away from getting overly bearish on the dollar at this time, the US economy is holding up decently well. In fact, I can show you a piece of economic data that we had this morning. It was the services PMI. It came in stronger than expected. This is something that I look at myself a lot. Services PMI beat this morning. And so what we've got here is we've got fiscal spending. Government spending is expected to go nowhere, right? It's not in a president's best interest to truly cut back spending, because it doesn't get things done, right? Cutting spending is like boring. It's not as fun. Spending more and finding, avenues for growth is more exciting and more flashy. But again, it's in a weird way. We have an incentive for presidents to spend as much as possible, as long as, they can get the check written, they'll go for it. But my point with showing you that is that, again, I think that leaves some limited downside for the dollar index, because again, it means limited downside for inflation, right? Let me take a sip of my coffee. So if we have limited downside for inflation, that could mean limited downside for the Fed to cut rates. And if the Fed has limited downside to cut rates, what does that mean for us? Well, it means the dollar might have a floor to it. We may break lower, we may trend down for a little bit here in the interim, but I do think that it's possible that we've, I pointed out a few weeks ago that I think we've hit a low for the year on the dollar index. I still think that is likely the case. The Fed's probably still going to cut rates, but with all this government spending, an economy that seems to be holding up decently well, I don't see a ginormous drop in the dollar at this time making much sense. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I am bullish on stocks, but I'm at the same time, I'm also I see limited downside to the dollar index. That's my thought. Now, again, Devender in the chat says, Nick, what about a FOMC? And that's a great question. I do think that the Fed is what you really also want to pay attention to this week. I know the election is all exciting and it's flashy, but don't forget about the Fed. It's really important what their guidance is looking like in terms of where we're going next with interest rates. I think that the Fed is likely to continue to cut rates for the rest of this year. Where I think the market may start to get into more debate territory is going into next year. How much are they going to cut? Are they going to continue to really put on the rate cut pressure? I don't really think so. If you don't see, again, you did have some poor numbers recently. You had the jobs data come in real light. We can pull that chart up here. But that's one figure. Let's not let that completely guide our opinion. Unemployment rate has come down, right? It's at a multi-year, relative low within a few standard deviations. It's very, very close to an all-time or multi-decade low. So the reason I point that out is that you have unemployment rate, which is not like skyrocketing. It may look like it's coming up, but again, 3.5 to 4% is very, very low historic unemployment rate. I think the long-term average is somewhere around 5.7% or so. So, being at 4.1 is not so bad. Unemployment claims, we can take a look at this, see how that's coming in. Unemployment claims have actually been sliding down, which is, a sign of potential strength in the labor market. GDP numbers did come out. They disappointed a little bit, but we're still at 2.8% growth on GDP for the U.S. So if you want to say that the U.S. economy is in shambles, I don't see it, right? I can see slowing in the U.S. economy. I can see, but I don't see impending recession. This is very solid growth. The U.S. economy is still putting up solid growth metrics. And I want to get back to the theme of today's live stream. I don't really see all these things being super correlated to the president. A lot of it is the business cycle that we're in. It's the Federal Reserve's job. It's not so much the president. It is really, truly some other forces that, move this stuff more. I've got a chart for you guys. I want to show this to you because I found it to be very important to this conversation tonight, which is this chart right here. Okay, I put this on my stories. You might have seen this already from me, but it's really important. This is the average annual S&P 500 performance under a Republican president versus a Democrat president. You might say, hold your biases back for a second. You might say, oh, well, it's going to be much better under a Republican or much better under a Democrat. Well, hold on for a second. When you actually look at the stats, which is, what we try and do here on this channel, we try and keep things, as unbiased as possible, because the main goal here is to make money. It's not to get your feelings all, warm and fuzzy or upset, right? We're here to make money. So That's the ultimate goal with trading. Of course, you don't want to just focus on that. You got to actually love this stuff. But if you want to make money, focus on data. That's something really important. The Republican president or Democrat president, when you have a divided Congress, with that, look at the returns. Outsized, statistically significant. Those are big words. That's about all I remember from stats class. So we had, when you have a Republican president, when you have divided Congress, it bodes well. It's almost like democracy, when in full swing, we get things really going for the stock market. When you get overly fixated on, if I have a Democrat and a Democratic Congress, we're going to really knock things out. Well, yeah, but you have also underperforming stock markets. When you get, Republican of both, you still get underperforming. Clearly, the numbers do not lie here. This is, going back from, by the way, 1933 until 2022, excluding 2001, 2002. So I just wanted to point that out. It's something worth mentioning. We don't want to get too caught up in biases. We do have this chart here. Let me stay on task here. We've got numbers coming in for Georgia. Georgia, we've got so far, what is that? 165,000 votes coming in so far, just narrowly leading for Kamala Harris. We have Virginia just a little bit here, nothing really coming in. New Hampshire, we've got a whopping 6 votes. Hey, we were laughing about this in the office. There was a town in New Hampshire, supposedly, that town has 6 people in it, and 3 of them voted Kamala Harris, and 3 of them voted for Donald Trump. Chandler, our video editor, one of them, made a funny joke. He said, "You guys couldn't have just had a 7th person join the town to break the tie." I'm not making that up, guys. That was on the news. You guys can look that up if you'd like. Apparently, there was a town in New Hampshire. There's 6 people in it, 6 people total. I want to know, were they like rotating, taking turns being the voting ballot person? Anyways, so we've got a couple states in. Most of this stuff is going to come in over the next several hours. I will not be here for the full thing, but I will do my best to give you an overall view. 45% of Florida coming in. This is kind of an interesting one. So we got 53% of the received votes coming in for Trump so far. About 2.7 million, about 2.36 for Kamala Harris for Florida. Georgia, my home state here, a swing state, is very close, it seems, slightly leading for Kamala Harris, but only 3% of the votes coming in so far, at least if I'm reading this chart correctly. So we'll keep an eye on that. If we take a look at the markets here, again, today was a very green day for the stock market. NASDAQ, S&P 500, both were up. Bitcoin was up, and Bitcoin I have a position on. Terrible timing on my part. But I was just kind of, I like this momentum. I like where this thing is going. I want to take a look at gold as well. Gold is, up and to the right, but I want to just caution on gold for a second. One thing to remember about gold, guys, is that gold is something that people buy when they're uncertain. But a lot of that uncertainty has been playing out for a while. Here's my opinion, and take it for what it's worth. My opinion is that we probably see in the next few days a decided winner, right? And you may think, well, isn't that obvious? Well, no, it actually sometimes can stretch out over time before they make a final call on certain states and counties and all that sort of thing. I think we probably see a decisive win in the coming days. Maybe it be tomorrow, maybe not. Maybe it's tonight. Who knows? Just depends how the votes fall. But with that context in mind, I think that if we see a decisive winner and a peaceful pass of power, gold probably sees a pullback. Why? Because gold thrives on uncertainty and fear. It's like a deep, dark, nightmarish figure that like leeches off your worst nightmares, right? That's gold. That got real creepy and dark quick. But you see what I'm saying? It thrives on uncertainty. If there is certainty in the election at some point here in the coming 24 hours, I would not be surprised if you see some of that premium, that uncertainty premium, get squeezed out of gold, right? Travis, what's up, my man? Thank you very much for the $5. Travis says gold Elliott wave 3 top down to wave 4 bottom 27.16 at least. Travis, I'm not going to lie. I'm not an Elliott wave guy. I appreciate the $5. And in terms of just a general market structure, I think I know what you're trying to say here. You're pointing out, and our guy Chris Pulver, who's on the show regularly, he's an Elliott wave guy. What I can see here is probably something similar to yourself. We got a very strong, we got a very strong overall move to the upside. I wouldn't be surprised if within this wave kind of pattern that we're seeing, that we do have a leg down, especially if there's a catalyst here, a short-term potential for, look, the election's behind us. Things may be chilled out for a little bit. And maybe I'm dead wrong. Maybe right after the election gets done, something breaks out in the Middle East. Let's hope not, right? But my point is, we saw this in the 2016 election. When Trump won in 2016, gold prices dropped in the following, couple weeks, and then they rebounded and went back higher. The reason I point that out is because, again, it's just this question of who's going to be the president, and that uncertainty scares people, so they hold gold. And then when there's that certainty again, they're like, oh, dump gold, get back into fill in the blank here, right? Stocks, things like that. So don't get me wrong. Rick says there's still geopolitical tensions, Nick. Yes, correct. I just am thinking that if you get a decisive presidential election, I think it's fair to say that gold probably sees a pullback. I'm not saying I am bearish on gold by any means. There's other things to keep cautionary in the background here. But I do think that one of the recent run-ups for gold prices have been the elections. And if that fades away here tonight, then I wouldn't be surprised if you see literally gold sees some downward pressure and that money go right into tech stocks and, risk on assets. Perhaps even Bitcoin starts stealing some of that capital. You got to think, if that money gets sold, where is it going, right? Most traders are not, or most investors are not trading, CFD contracts. They're not doing, 2 lots on gold or something like that. What they're actually doing is they're, buying gold futures, or they're, buying an ETF that holds gold. They're buying physical gold, and that money gets landed back in their cash account or their margin account, their brokerage account. And then they can go deploy it somewhere else. And where will they deploy it? Well, if there's a peaceful path of power, I think stocks are a good candidate. And you might say, well, Nick, stocks are at all-time highs. Yes, they're pretty close, right? But it does not mean that they can't go higher, especially if, there's, again, let's go back to our picture for a second. What might be crazy to say is that I might be most bullish if you get Kamala Harris and a divided Congress, or you get Donald Trump and a divided Congress, right? Both of those scenarios, just leaving my personal opinions at the door and just studying the stats here for stocks, that's where I would say this looks very bullish. If you really want to get granular with it, if you get like an all blue or all red, that might actually be more positive for gold, because then people's uncertainties are going to spike yet again. Because a red plus red here, or a blue plus blue here, you know what that means? That means big changes are possible. And big changes, just like you and I, we don't like change, right? Nobody likes change. So does the stock market. The stock market feels the same way. So again, that's something else just to think about, just to keep in your back pocket there as we get closer. Let's see if we have anything else here reporting. I know a lot of it is coming out, by the way, guys, in about 30 minutes. We have the 8 o'clock, I believe, my home state of Georgia reports. I believe also North Carolina polls close at 7:30. So could be wrong, but you guys can fill me in if you got something there for me. We got 470 people watching between the different places that we are streaming. I just want to thank you for joining me here today on this stream. I will be going for the next, a while, hour and a half here. So if you are enjoying the show, I do want to just ask a quick favor of you. If you could smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'm going to run a quick thing here. I've got this on my checklist. I'll get in trouble with my with our partnership manager. She's got us. She wants me to promote this 8-cap competition. Guys, check this out. This is a free 8-cap competition that they are kicking off And it's there's like some cash rebate prizes available. So we're going to roll this quick clip. James, if you want to hit that, it's the second video here. It's the 8-cap election stream video right under the intro you put in here in our streaming software. We're going to roll this really quick. I'll drop the link here in the chat. And guys, check this out. It's a free competition. You can win some great prizes. We'll be right back to the coverage in just a moment. What's up, guys? I wanted to take a minute to let you know about today's video sponsor, 8cap, and the free trading competition that they are putting on for live stream viewers. It is completely free to join all the way up until November 7th, and it is our trading competition centered around the US election. Now, I want to reiterate, this is free to join, and first through third place get cash rebates and a free TradingView premium account. Fourth and fifth place also get free TradingView accounts. During this promotional period, anyone who creates a new live account with 8cap gets access to reduced commissions and spreads for a limited time. Down below in the description, I've left a link for you guys to join. It is completely free. Again, 8cap has been a long-term supporter and sponsor of our live streams, and this competition is going to be a ton of fun, free to join, and you could win some really awesome prizes. Don't miss it. Link in the description down below. All right, there you go, guys. Again, take advantage of the free to join trading competition with 8cap. That is unfortunately restricted to non-US people, but you can win some great prizes like you just saw. So make sure go support our sponsors. They've been long-term supporters of our show. So big shout out to 8cap. And again, join that competition. Totally free to join. Great free prizes that you could potentially win. Free TradingView accounts. Man, I don't know if I could live without my TradingView premium account anymore. It is too nice. I can do all sorts of handy dandy chart work stuff. Anyways, US 30 making a little bit of a move here. Look at the 1 hour chart, 5-minute chart, just making a push here higher. S&P 500, NASDAQ, interestingly, not doing the same. We got some big pushes here. Bitcoin also making a push higher, Ethereum as well. We've got gold here actually making a move lower, interestingly enough. 5-minute chart showing some interesting moves here. And that's probably in response to some new data. Let's see what we've got here in terms of the chart. Got 64% of Florida. So far, a slight lean here for Donald Trump. You got 3.8 million votes for Donald Trump. You got 3.3 for Kamala Harris. It's still early, though. Only 64% of Florida reporting. Georgia now has bumped up a little bit more. Now actually swung in favor of Trump by just a narrow amount, but this is only 4% of the vote. Very, very small percentages. South Carolina here coming in only 1% of the vote. I mean, we're very early, guys, in terms of this event. But some of the key states, to my knowledge, are states like Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida. What else am I missing, guys? Give me the swing states that I'm missing. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Is it Minnesota or Wisconsin? One of these is always a swing state, but I'm getting them mixed up. Smash that like button. Appreciate you. Yes, please. If you could hit the thumbs up button on the show, it really does help. If you're watching on Twitter, give it a heart there. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit the thumbs up button, all that good stuff. Look at that, gold and silver making a little bit of a move lower here. Bitcoin up 1.3% here. NASDAQ and S&P 500 in the green in the Asian session here as we get started. Yeah, if we have any extra swing states that I missed, let me know. I think there's got to be some out in the Midwest, right? Is it, it's not Colorado. Is it New Mexico? New Mexico, I think, is a swing state. Maybe Arizona. Gosh, I'm all over the place. Anyways, that's what we've got so far. We'll see where that comes in. I want to show you some stuff here on this chart. I'm going to come back to that because I just want to keep an eye on the markets as we move here. Travis, thank you very much. $5 again. Appreciate you. You don't have to donate to the stream. I very much appreciate it, though. Travis, that's $10 donated to the show, my man. Thank you very much. I can buy myself a brand new state-of-the-art coffee mug. Thanks to you. I think New Mexico. Okay, James has got some info for us, guys. James with the plug here today. Shout out to James. He helped us get this whole stream set up. New Mexico and Nevada are swing states, potentially. Okay. Wisconsin is as well. Michigan as well. Pennsylvania are the biggest. Pennsylvania and Georgia are the biggest swing states this year. Okay. I mean, last year or last election, I know Georgia went blue. Pennsylvania, I think went blue or red. Oh man, I can't remember. 2020, guys. Quiz question. Pennsylvania, was it red or blue last time around? I don't know. Trump is red or blue. It's Trump would be red. He is the Republican nominee, and Kamala Harris is the blue or the Democrat running in this race. Now, I do. It's so interesting how, you know, when it comes to this election, it's one of the most of my memory, aggressive elections that I've seen, right? People are very, very uneasy about who's going to win. And, you know, and I totally understand that. This channel is not an election channel. I am by no means a, you know, political expert. So I'm going to keep this very markets focused. If totally understandable if you are like, oh, I really want this candidate to win, or I really want the other one to win, totally understandable. But for the purpose of this show, for the purpose of this live stream, I really think that, and I've said this for a while, both candidates, if we just get a decisive winner, it's good for the stock market and it's not good for gold. Okay. Let me explain. If we get just a winner, like let's just say, for example, Kamala Harris wins or Donald Trump wins strongly by the end of the night. If that happens, the stock market is going to say, that is no longer an issue for us to worry about. Let's go higher. That's my opinion. I could be dead wrong about this, but generally speaking, it is commonplace. I've listened to a lot of professional, much smarter people than myself say something similar, where they basically say it's a de-risking potential move. We've seen this. We've looked at this data. We have the put call ratio on the EdgeFinder for this very moment. We can see when put demand gets really high and it causes a big old fashioned people get scared moment. And then after it, people are like, oh, that wasn't so bad. And they jump back into stocks. That's my opinion. I bought the NASDAQ a few days back, and so far it's working well. We're almost at a 1-to-1, but it's still early, right? Things, if they go the other way, right, there's not a decisive winner and there's big uncertainty. Yeah, the NASDAQ could drop and gold could pop, right, as people rush back into gold for safety. I just don't see the running for safety trade right now. I see the opposite. I see people are already in safety. They're holding tight to their puts, right? Or they're holding tight to their long gold position. And then when the fear event is behind us, which I think it will be, I think we'll probably see a winner in the next 24 hours. I could be wrong about that idea. That's, you know, a distinct possibility. Wouldn't be the first or last time that I'm wrong on YouTube in front of, you know, my audience. But if I'm right about that, most likely I think gold takes a breather and stocks resume their recent rally. Okay, James got another message for me. James says, watching the TV too, North Carolina is also a swing state. Oh yeah, how did I forget North Carolina? North Carolina is definitely a very strong, you know, a very important state here to both parties, as it is, you know, did it go blue last time? Let us know, guys, in the chat. I know I'm all over the place. I'm like I said, I warned you, I'm not a elections professional. I'm really trying to just keep this really market centric. Gold, silver down here a little bit. I do also want to mention, I keep referencing this tool, the EdgeFinder, currently on Black Friday sale. If you guys have not, we got some interesting new trade ideas. Dollar yen, I got to look at this one because I was looking at the chart earlier. Black Friday sale is currently live right now. If you are not already using the EdgeFinder, we're going to do an election special here, guys. We are going to be doing, if you are watching here with me live right now, we are doing 45% off the tool. That is the biggest discount that we do all year long. If you want price details, if you want to get access to the Black Friday /election discount, we're doing 40% this month, but we're doing 40%, 45% during this live stream. If you guys want that 45% off deal, all you have to ask is just send them a direct message on this link. We got a support team. Let me show you what that looks like. So when you click that link here, it's It's going to take you to our website where you can chat with a member of our support team. Click right here and just let them know that you want the live stream 45% off special discount, and they'll lock you in at the lowest price of the year. I'm not making that up. That is our biggest opportunity to get access to the EdgeFinder. It's actually on a nominal basis, the biggest discount we've ever done. Prices have gone up on the tool, but currently it is a one-time payment, 45% off, and you get access to all the data that I use to make the trades that I take on this channel day in, day out. It is the prime tool that I use. It is a wonderful software tool that we've been building the last few years. Don't miss it. I know a lot of you guys watch these shows on a regular basis. There's your 45% off offer. Okay, so speaking of this, let's take a look at some charts here. Oh, we got more data here. West Virginia. Did they call it? Is that what that means? If it's just straight up red or straight up blue, does that mean they called it? I'm not sure. James, I found this. If you're watching here with me, this link here is what I found on the New York Times website. It's super interactive. I really like this one. I found it because I saw other people using it in their stream. Okay, thanks, James. James is saying yes to, if it goes solid, that means they called the state. So, I mean, again, it is very early in the night. So here's Florida. This is, I think Florida, I could be wrong here, but I believe Florida is expected to actually go red, and that Georgia is the more uncertain one. Georgia could go blue. It could go red. I think Florida is likely to go red. I believe it won for Trump in the last election against Biden, and then Georgia actually went blue last time in favor of Biden. So I do think that the likely scenario is Florida goes red again, but the question is whether Georgia flips. I think there's a couple states here that really are going to make the difference. James outlined to me just a moment ago that some of those states include Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. We're waiting on some of that data, and some of the early to report ones are Georgia and North Carolina. I believe we are supposed to get some key data, and most of the votes are going to likely be in the next 30 or 40 minutes for these two key states, which we're seeing this market react in real time to this data as it's coming in. Look at the NASDAQ S&P 500 making moves higher here. Again, no, to my understanding, we haven't seen any significant moves, but if there's one thing the market's doing right now, guys, again, the election odds were all over the place. During today, right? The betting odds were they were just going crazy both directions, and yet the market was up during the day, right? So it's almost like the market is just cheering like the election itself, regardless of who wins. It's fascinating to watch. It's too early to say because the market could drop hard, but this has been my idea. My best guess is that regardless of the outcome, stocks move higher on, again, government spending is not going away. That's a positive thing for stocks. Why is that a positive thing for stocks? Well, in the short run, it means money just keeps flowing. And where does that money land? It finds its way into the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, whether it be through government contracts, businesses, or just straight up money gets earned and put back into the market by investors. Right. So I think that government spending, in fact, I think that if you had a candidate on the line that was very much not for big government spending, the market would dislike that candidate regardless of their red or blue. Right. Because government spending is very stimulative. It's almost like Fed rate cuts. Right. When you have lots of government spending, it's just money getting injected into the system. Very good for stocks. So I think that the market is sort of just saying, hey, we got two big spenders up to bat. So we'll see. So far, again, we've called a couple states here. Let's see where we're at here. I've just updated the page. So West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana for Donald Trump, Vermont for Kamala Harris, Florida keeps updating. More votes are rolling in here, 54% to 45%. It seems like slightly in favor of Donald Trump. And then Georgia, we are still very early on. Only 9% of the votes are in. USD JPY is booming higher. Dang, really? Because I might have just missed that trade. Look at that. There's dollar yen. I was looking at this one for a possible long entry. Dollar yen showing up as a bullish rated currency pair on the EdgeFinder. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. If you get a big push on dollar yen, I like this one quite a bit. One of the things here that popped some USD crosses a little bit here today is the strong PMI data, right? Strong services PMI came in this morning for the US. In fact, let me just pull that up for reference because I'm referencing it. We have the data here, so why not use it? We had services PMI beat expectations. Red dot, guys, that's the forecast for services PMIs. And we had a real strong beat on that number. So big beat on services PMI data, which again, positive for stock market and for the dollar, I would say. Dollar yen here, look at that 4-hour chart, really strong candle coming in here as we speak. S&P 500 also making a stab higher. NASDAQ interestingly trailing the others. Here's the Russell. Let's take a look at Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin's up another 2%, putting me back in the green on this poorly timed entry that I had today. I bought right around here. No, it kind of looks silly, and then it kind of came back down, now pushing through that level. I do think Bitcoin's got some strong momentum here. We'll see where that takes us. I've got a stop loss on that trade in case I'm wrong. US 30, here's the Dow Jones up about 0.5%. Russell's up about 0.9 or so. Dollar index also slightly in positive territory on the 4-hour chart. What is this gap? Am I seeing something here? Look at this gap on the dollar index. It's a weird. Is this a trading view glitch or something? Am I missing something? Actually, there was a gap. Okay, that's weird. Anybody else having issues with DXY on their chart? 2016 and 2020, the election, during the election, the S&P 500 moved higher. Yep. And that's a good example of one red, one blue, and market, just celebrates that risk event being behind us. I think that is likely what we are going to see here. S&P 500 came down to a key level of support, pushing off those levels. We'll see if it can sustain the rally. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if, it comes down to the Fed meeting, though. We might see a little bit of a pop here for the S&P 500 as the election concerns sort of dwindle a little bit. But the big question then becomes the Fed meeting on Thursday. We'll, of course, be live streaming that event as well. We'll probably be going all day that day. So it's a crazy week. We'll be streaming as much as possible for you guys. All I ask is that if you're enjoying these shows, got the whole election theme set up just for tonight on the stream here. If you enjoy the efforts or appreciate the efforts that my team and I put into these live streams, this is our full-time thing. We are constantly focused on making. I've got 2 guys that are media specialists. They're great at what they do, producing the show. They put together this lovely, stream theme and all these different, all the different stuff on your screen right now. If you could do us a big favor and just hit the thumbs up button on the stream, really just supports our work. We really appreciate that. Okay. Look at the UJ candle. Yeah. Look at dollar yen. I mean, that is a big push here on the lower time frames, 15-minute chart going kind of crazy. Take a look at Bitcoin also going wild here, taking out the highs of the day, which is big. Like I said, I have a position long on Bitcoin at this time. See what we've got on this chart here. See if anything new has happened. Florida's 75% in, slightly still favored for Trump. Georgia's still way too early, 12% in. South Carolina, North Carolina, you got a couple states here starting to report. A couple states called already. And we'll continue to monitor it. Not selling gold, waiting to see if it will break further. Next, check euro and pound. Look at the pound dollar. Yeah, let's look at some currencies for the currency folks. Let's take a look. Look at that. Wow, guys. My goodness, there's that dollar strength coming in. Euro dollar, pound dollar dropping like rocks here. My goodness. There's your 4-hour chart. Interesting. We'll see how the euro plays out here. If you sort of continue to see this thing start to break some structure points, right? You've got key support here. Let's see if that breaks. But I mentioned earlier, I do think that this event is likely to cause some dollar strength on at the end of the day. Whether it's Trump or Harris, I do think that this is sort of a strong dollar play. And I've been saying this for a little bit here simply because, again, both of them have large expectations to spend a lot of money. And a lot of money printing means inflation. And inflation means interest rates may not get cut as much. So that's kind of my oversimplified view of the currency side of things. And again, I think that that's also a potential bearish catalyst for gold. I'm not out here shorting gold, but I'm saying that increased government spending could mean inflation. Inflation could mean what? Higher interest rates for longer, which is not a bullish thing for gold, right? So I'm a little cautious going into the new year with gold getting overly bullish. Now, there's a different scenario we could paint. If you see economic data sour completely, right? Meaning that we're printing a ton of money and the economy's tanking, then gold looks very different. Then gold looks super bullish. But I'm not going to try and make that prediction because I don't see that in the data right now. Right now, what do I see? I don't try and forecast economic data. I look at what's come out and I just ride the trends that I can find. Right now, economic data seems to be decently strong. It's not by any means, impeccable, but, we're not all red and we're not all blue here, right? So when we look at, manufacturing PMIs, we can go through the list. GDP did miss expectations, a bit weak. PMIs, a little bit weak there. Services PMI, real strong, right? Retail sales, stronger than expected. CPI, both of them came in a little higher than expected, right? So that's not particularly bullish, but it's also not necessarily a signal of weak economy. It's just a sign of inflation, which does work against us. Our NFP number came in real weak, but unemployment rate stayed the same. So a mixed picture. We can't decisively say, oh, the economy is just tanking, but we also can't say it's, impeccable and undefeated, right? So that's where I'm kind of, I'm in the middle on that. So if we see the economy worsen, some of the indicators that I'm looking at on that EdgeFinder, chart that I just showed, then gold becomes a more positive story for me. But right now, mixed, and we're trading near all-time highs. I don't love gold as much as I once did. I've traded gold on the long side almost all year long, but I've just been cautious here recently for, some of the economic data has been very upbeat, real strong. So we'll see. Let's just update this chart, see if there's any new information. Georgia, Florida, still kind of data rolling in here. Ohio is starting to report as well. But again, it's very early in the evening. It's so hard to know exactly what's going to happen to these things. Somebody pointed out that on Bovada, Trump is minus 180 on the odds market, which is interesting. But again, keep an eye on those things. Those could swing back the other direction so fast. These events are highly, highly volatile. Look at that. The Russell's up almost 1% here in the Asian session. That's a wild move here. Getting started already. And take a look back at the setups here on the top setups page. Pound yen, Swiss yen, Aussie yen, Euro yen. I find it interesting that a lot of the yen crosses are getting some bullish readings. Let's look at Euro yen, for example. I like Euro yen if you get a pullback into this area. I marked this chart up earlier. If you get a dip on Euro yen, I like that one potentially. Kiwi yen also for the currency traders out there. Don't love that chart. Aussie yen, same thing. Don't love that chart. Dollar yen, I do like it. If we got a pullback here, or if we break and retest, I like that chart too. Dollar yen looks real good. I'm going to keep an eye on that one. I thought another thing that might be worth taking a look at was interesting was the COT report. Notice that before this week, Smart Money, right? This is last week's data that we checked. What did they do? Smart Money bought so much of the S&P 500. Think about this. Think about what I'm saying. Institutional money bought the S&P 500 aggressively before this week. They reduced short contracts. They increased long contracts in the latest COT filing. Do you see what I'm saying? NASDAQ, bullish lean. Dollar, bullish lean. So when I share these ideas, I'm also referencing the data that I'm looking at to build these biases. And tracking institutional money is certainly one of the things that I like to do on a regular basis. So I thought this was really interesting. If you had looked at this the head of this week and said, look, they're buying S&P, they're buying NASDAQ, buying dollar. So far, that's been a decent call this week, except for the dollar. Dollar's been a little bit down here this week. They sold gold, they sold oil, sold silver. Very interesting moves on the COT front. And again, this is tracking institutional money according to the Commitment of Traders report that comes out once per week. We built this tool to allow traders to see what latest weekly position changes are looking like. Basically, I like to say this is the AKA, also known as the latest buys and latest sells chart in the Commitment of Traders report. We've got people all over the world who love this tool. This is one of our top favorite things that the EdgeFinder offers. And I mentioned this earlier, but we are doing an election live stream special. If you send us a direct message on our website right now, you can get 45% off the EdgeFinder Pro. This gets you access to all of our market scanning data, the Commitment of Traders data, our data scanners like the gold and silver scanner, stock indices scanner, our top setups algorithm, which shows you bullish and bearish readings on your favorite charts, whether you trade currency pairs, commodities like gold, silver, oil, or indices like NASDAQ and the S&P 500, etc. All of it is being tracked. All of it is automated. It's all browser based. So you can see it's just in my browser here. And you can get all of it for a one-time fee right now. We're a software company out of Atlanta, Georgia. This is what we do. My background is in software engineering. And when I combined it with trading, which I started trading, 8 or 9 years ago. But my background is in software engineering. I combine the two things into what my company is today, which is A1 Trading. We build software tools for traders, and we are currently offering 45% off during the election live stream here on all of your favorite tools here that you may see regularly on the live stream. Take advantage. Send us a direct message using this link here. We're doing our Black Friday sale. It's 40% off all month long, but if you send us a DM while we're live streaming, it's 45% off for the election live stream special. So don't miss it. Just let them know you're watching the stream and they'll hook you up with that extra discount. All right, let's check the polls here. 20% of Georgia now reporting. We have 629,000 votes for Donald Trump and 421,000 for Kamala Harris. South Carolina, slight lean for Trump. Kamala Harris leads in North Carolina. Look at that. Only 3% of the vote in. Virginia, Kamala Harris leading in Virginia. Ohio, Donald Trump leading in Ohio. That is a swing state to my knowledge. I heard someone say that Ohio is becoming more of a red state, and Virginia is becoming more of a blue state. So seeing some of that maybe change over time. Last time around, Georgia was a blue state. It is very much a swing state, and it is also my home state. So Georgia is only 20% reporting, slight lean for Donald Trump so far in Georgia. Look at Florida here, pretty strong lead here so far for Donald Trump in Florida with 78% of the votes in. And again, biggest swing states, according to James and I's conversation earlier, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania. I believe those are some of the most hotly contested battleground states, if you will. Is it a one-time payment? Yes, it is. It is a one-time payment, and it is our biggest discount of the year. So if you've been watching and you're thinking about getting access to the EdgeFinder, just send us a DM and ask us about it. We'll be more than happy. Our support team is more than happy to get you some information, see if it's right for you. But again, it is a one-time payment. It's the biggest discount of the year. Okay, so still seeing votes come in. I do believe we're supposed to, I don't know, who makes the rules around here on this, but I believe we're supposed to get Georgia and North Carolina in the next, 10, 15 minutes. At least I thought so. But it's possible that will continue to roll in here. Let's take a look at the markets here. Dollar yen up 0.7%. Stocks up 0.4% for the S&P 500 here. NASDAQ's up 0.18. Dow Jones up 0.5%. Russell up 1%. My goodness. Russell's going to be super volatile, I can tell you that. Dollar index up about 0.63 here percent. Again, going back to that institutional flow, I thought that was interesting. We keep an eye on that commitment of traders report. I mean, they bought dollar and S&P. Those were two notable plays here out of the commitment of traders data so far. So real interesting. Putting a little bit of downward pressure, this dollar strength is on gold, it seems. But really, gold, I want to show you what I referenced earlier. I referenced the idea that following Trump's, actually, let's do a study on gold. You guys want to do a study on gold? Let's do this real quick. Let's go to November 2020, right? November 2020, November 5th, right around the beginning. And you can see here what happened. Gold dropped following the election, right? So here's the election. Joe Biden won. Gold dropped, right? At the same time, by the way, stocks went up. Okay, let's go do it again. Let's go 4 years prior to that when Donald Trump won the presidential election against Hillary Clinton. Let's take a look back then. What happened? Here it is. Election is in this candle. What happened? Gold dropped, right? At the same time, what happened to the stock market? Stocks went up. So we're seeing a theme here. It is a a lifting of the uncertainties that seems to drop gold and pop stocks. Now, will it be a certain same scenario here this time in 2024? No, there's never a certainty. And when it comes to markets, nothing ever repeats exactly, but oftentimes it does rhyme. So my bias here is we've had a really strong run. A lot of this has been uncertainty about this election, which, by the way, this is, I believe, expected to be the most voted upon election in our nation's history in the United States, for those who are not in the U.S. I believe it's supposed to be our most heavily voted upon election of our nation's history. And so, there's a lot of uncertainty about this event. So I wouldn't be surprised if it does repeat, the last couple elections where we've seen, Donald Trump. Wow, this is going to be the third one in a row with Donald Trump as the Republican nominee. Whether you like the guy or dislike the guy, my goodness, the guy brings so much drama. So if we were to take the last two examples of Donald Trump running into account, what happens on gold? Well, we have two examples of gold dropping hard following whether he won or not, right? Whether it was Biden beating him or Clinton losing to him. Both scenarios, the market said, okay, we now know what's happened. We move past this, right? So gold, in my opinion, I'm not necessarily scalping this or short-term trading this in any way. I'm not taking a trade on this. But my educated guess is I think gold probably pulls back. And I'm not saying it's going to completely crash from here. Just saying I think if we are looking at the examples that we have here recently, gold moves lower, stocks move higher, and it's sort of back to business as usual. Stocks so far seem to be getting that picture, but it is so early. You could see a reversal of these trends. The catalyst here, the potential opposite extreme would be if there is not a resolution to who the president is. If that question goes unanswered for too long, it's kind of like when Congress has a debt ceiling and they go too close to the debt ceiling without lifting it, without making any decisions, and people start to get nervous, right? It's the uncertainty about the state of democracy at that time that gets people all sorts of scared. That could be the breaking the pattern here, where gold moves higher and stocks move lower. That being said, that's a scenario that I personally think is less likely to happen. I think the more likely scenario is that we get a winner, the market moves on and starts going back to where we've been paying attention to, which is, right, the Powell trade. That's what I've been calling it. So, yeah. Let's see what else we can get into here. Another thing that I think, another reason I'm very bullish on stocks right now specifically is this chart right here. This is a seasonality chart month to month that shows you on a 10-year historical basis the average monthly performance based on the asset that you've selected. Now, if you have the EdgeFinder and you want to do this study on something different, maybe you're a gold trader, maybe you trade Bitcoin, you can select whichever chart you want, knock yourself out. You can play around with currency pairs. You can play around. I'm just going to look at the NASDAQ for a second because it's something that I trade a lot. But again, feel free to go play around with this data yourself. Seasonality on a month-to-month basis, May, June, July, August. What is the average historical performance of the asset in question, in this case, the NASDAQ? Well, November, which is the month we're in, is historically a very strong period in the stock market. December as well. Now, not only that, there's a bit of, in my opinion, a possibility, and all of this is possibilities, probabilities, and best guesswork. None of this is certainties, right? If you're coming to this stream and you're like, Nick, what's the market going to do? You tell me, because you know. I don't know, and I will always be the first to tell you that I don't know with certainty what the market is going to do, and anybody who tells you otherwise is lying to you, right? The markets are sort of like the human collective, right? It's the combined thought process of everybody's sort of thoughts. So we don't know with certainty, but what we do know is that historically speaking, this is a bullish part of the year. We also know that in election years, right, once you get an elected official, the market sort of resumes its kind of goes back to normal, which is trends up. And then what else? Well, when we have a really strong year like we have this year, we've had very big, great performance for the stock market this year. Look at all these really positive months, 6.2, 6.4% months, big gains. Well, what happens is a lot of big hedge fund managers, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm underperforming dramatically. I need to get in. So they start chasing, right? So there's that fourth quarter chase. We saw this big time in 2023, and I would not be surprised if we see a repeat of that function in 2024. If we see a repeat of chasing for performance, right? If you're a hedge fund manager and you manage a bunch of people's money and you're not in the rally, people who are invested with you are going to look at you and say, what are you doing with my money? We missed the rally. What are you doing? Right. So there's that potential that you get the chase, right? The chase effect, November and December. And I think that is a strong potential candidate. Oh my gosh, guys, we just got a bunch of stuff here on the chart. Check this out. We've got Florida called. My goodness. Florida called for Donald Trump. Alabama called for Trump. Maryland called for Harris. Massachusetts, Connecticut, a couple states, Rhode Island coming in for Harris. We're looking at so far 95 to 35, but don't let this, don't jump to any conclusions. We still have a lot of states here still yet to come in here. Ohio, actually now slightly leading for Harris here. Pennsylvania, only 3% of the votes in. Big swing so far for Kamala Harris, but again, only 3% in. Georgia, Donald Trump is leading at this time by a pretty sizable lead here. 200,000 votes, let's call it, at this time. North Carolina, Kamala Harris leading in North Carolina. Virginia, Kamala Harris leading in Virginia. Again, a lot of these states were going to go red. A lot of these states were going to go blue. There was never a question, right? Alabama, if it went blue, everybody was sleeping, right? Because that state just always goes red. Massachusetts, same story. It always goes blue. So so far here, the big question is, I mean, Florida was, as I mentioned earlier, was sort of forecasted to go red. But we did get the confirmation there. So they called Florida. And if I am, South Carolina just got called. Yep. Florida just got called. Okay. Thanks, James, for the feedback there. I appreciate that. When I see these things light up red or blue, James has told me that does mean that they confirmed that state has been called one way or the other. Russell's up 1.1% here. Look at that. Gold down 0.3, silver down 0.9, copper down 0.88. I'm curious what Chinese stocks look like. Chinese stocks moving lower. Let's break this down. Chinese stocks for just a second. If you were trading during the last presidential administration from Donald Trump, he was not making a lot of friends over in China, right? In fact, he was doing the opposite. There was a big trade war during presidential his last administration. So perhaps this is telling you a slight, the market is seeing potential for a Donald Trump victory coming in slightly higher. The Russell moving higher might also suggest that. And if Bitcoin is up, that would also potentially suggest that. These are some of the areas of the market that would, potentially do better under Trump, not necessarily because it's just because these places have sensitivities in certain ways, like Bitcoin. Vance and Trump, I believe, have both been sort of vocally supportive of cryptocurrency in general. So Bitcoin is watching very close on that matter. So that's something to pay close attention to. Again, I do think that the Russell is also a similar story. This is a small cap company, domestic companies getting a boost from tariffs, maybe the story here, and maybe the play for right now. I'll tell you what, I wish I was in the Russell, but I am not. I'm long the NASDAQ, which is, it's up a modest 0.25%, but it was up a lot here earlier today. I am long Bitcoin, so, that has the potential to be a trade here. I've got to stop below the lows. Very, very volatile evening, guys. We cannot say for sure anything at this time. First results in from Michigan. Let me see this. Michigan. It just popped up with a notification for that, but nothing just yet. So we're seeing a couple states come in here. A lot of the early states here. Did we call another one? Am I missing one? Nope. So we've got several of New England coming in for Kamala Harris, and some Trump states as well. Man, this is kind of fun. I didn't do this last election. I'm regretting it. This is you guys are relatively tame in the chat. I had this big fear that the chat was going to be like super toxic, and I'm sure we could get it there. You guys are disappointing me. I was hoping for some talk. Actually, I'm going to count my blessings. Please don't be toxic. Let's keep this as cordial as it has been. It's been actually quite pleasant. So cheers to election night. Election night doesn't have to be so up in arms and wild. And I do understand that there are people on both sides of the political spectrum, and there's people who also just genuinely could care less. But I appreciate the so far, I shouldn't have said this, but so far the respect I appreciate. Russell's up 1.29% here. Chinese stocks slightly lower. Again, it's kind of just a big waiting game. We're sitting here watching and waiting to see states get called. It's very early in the evening. It probably will be one of those things. You'll have a rolling sort of numbers coming in for the rest of the evening. Oh, we got Texas starting to report here. Look at this. Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, very close in Texas with 17% of the votes casted. I'm loving this chart, by the way. This chart is shout out to the New York Times for their very awesome interactive chart here. More votes came in for Georgia, 1.1 million for Trump and 8.3 3, let's call it, for Kamala Harris. It's possible that because in general everyone is making money, so we are calm. We're not Americans. So I'm curious. Can you guys comment real quick? Where are you watching from? I know a lot of people are obviously not from the States, but if you are from the States, let me hear you. We've got the American themed here. I'm I proudly voted here today. I exercised my American right for democracy. I'm very pro-American. And, it is a sad thing that in today's world, at least in the United States, it's almost like viewed as, in some cases, a negative thing to be very pro-America. Pro-America does not mean pro-certain party. It does not mean anti-certain groups. It just means I like the man, I'm getting all sorts of nationalistic here on YouTube, but I am a big supporter of America, and I think it's important that that be something that we can all agree on. And it's crazy that that's somehow not always an okay view to have. I do my best on social media to stay as I'm not going to say unbiased because I have my own biases, but at least to stay as respectful to all sorts of different people and opinions. I am here and I understand. I have, I hope, enough humility to recognize that you don't watch me for politics. You don't watch me for politics of any sort, right? You watch me for the markets. I understand that is the scope that you watch me for, and that is the scope that I will attempt to stay within. That being said, it just so happens the only reason I'm talking about this at all is because it does impact the markets. And that is the only reason that we're discussing this topic whatsoever. I'm doing my best just to be a reporter here, and that is all. Taking a look at the updated views, Kansas starting to come in with numbers. Oklahoma, did they just call this or was that already called? That was already called. Texas, 17% of the votes. Georgia still 37%. Again, I've said this, but I'll say it again for some of the people who are just rolling into the show here at this time. Some of the key battleground states, as they call it, the ones that will potentially hold the keys to the White House, if you will, are my home state of Georgia, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania. There's other ones. New Mexico. James sent me a list. Hold on. Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan, and what am I missing? We got North Carolina. Last one is New Mexico. Yeah, we already got that. Nevada, Nevada, as they call it. The rest of the country, this is a meme-worthy thing for everyone. Like everybody I know calls this state Nevada, but everybody in this state calls it Nevada. So I don't know what they're saying over in Nevada. They just got their state name wrong, but it's Nevada. Nevada. I can't say Nevada. Can we just call it Las Vegas? Let's just call this Las Vegas. The whole state is just Las Vegas and the rest is a desert. And just kidding. I know somebody is watching right now and they feel highly disrespected. I'm just kidding. Don't worry. But I only ever come to your state to gamble. I'm just kidding. I'm sure it's a beautiful state outside of Las Vegas, just nobody ever goes there. So Las Venturas, Nevada. Watching anxiously from New Zealand. North Carolina is going to be red. I mean, we'll see. It's a bit early to tell. North Carolina currently being led by Kamala Harris. Georgia being led by Donald Trump. Ohio being led by Kamala Harris. Pennsylvania being led by Kamala Harris. But again, some of these states have only reported a small number of their votes. Like, for example, Michigan, 73% Kamala Harris, but again, only 2% reported. So please remember that you got to keep an eye on how much of the state has actually been reported. Can't draw any sort of conclusions. New Jersey has started to report as well. New Hampshire here. I could be wrong, but I believe Maine is, I don't think it's a battleground state, but I heard somebody discuss that this could possibly be a battleground state in the future. But I don't know. Kansas coming in with some more votes. Texas as well. Take an updated look at the market. Stock market's up another 0.5%. Remember, it was up a lot during the trading session here today. I am long the NASDAQ. I am long Bitcoin. But we'll see. Yields are up here. No surprise there. It's been an interesting week so far. Look at that, guys. Russell is moving and grooving. Nick, which region has the most beautiful girls? Well, my wife is from this state, approximately right over here. So I would say right around here. If my wife is watching, I will be home promptly and on time. We will see. I mean, the data is continuing to come in. Texas, more votes came in. Donald Trump now slightly leading. Georgia, more votes came in. Still leading for Trump, perhaps narrowed just a little bit from where it just was, or widened. But again, Georgia continuing to report. But again, there's just, even the thing is, this stream is mostly for fun, because if I'm being completely honest with you, I think that the election is going to cause some movement and some volatility, but that in 2 days, 3 days from now, it's back to the Fed. It's back to what we're doing with interest rates, because regardless of who the president is, it is all about the monetary policy. It's really the most important figure. And with that in mind, we've had some strong economic data, and we'll see what the Fed has to say. Look at that. Some of the currency pairs are going crazy. Here's euro dollar, pound dollar, Kiwi dollar. Top setups are also moving. Look at this NASDAQ back on top. Hello, NASDAQ. I'm currently already long the NASDAQ, but I love when the NASDAQ shows up and gives me green lights on the EdgeFinder. What triggered this back into positive, Terry? I'll tell you right now. The trend filter that we have built into this thing just triggered bullish. Love to see that. I'm already long the NASDAQ. I picked this up earlier in the week when we had a bullish signal already. But to see it back on there because trend just filtered in positive, love to see that. Services PMI also was a strong catalyst here today, giving us more positive reading. Seasonality in the month of November, I quoted that earlier as a reason for me to stay bullish. I'm not telling you what you should do. I'm telling you simply what I am doing, my opinions about it. I stay convicted long technology names, long the NASDAQ. Specifically, I've said this before and I'll say it again. My favorite play right now is the semiconductor ETF, SMH, NVIDIA, Qualcomm, Taiwan Semi. These are companies that build computer chips. And this is a bipartisan strategy that America wants to win in. Whether America goes blue or America goes red, Democrats and Republicans know something is really important to the global stage, and that is AI. AI is not red or blue. AI is imperative for America to lead, right? America is leading the charge with AI. NVIDIA is a monster. But for that to continue to flourish, it is likely the case that regardless of whether you get Harris or Trump, they want AI to fly. So that's why I like SMH. I like this position that I'm in currently. I've traded SMH and made good money this year on the long side of this ETF. This ETF, by the way, tracks a collection of stocks in one, right? So this is SMH. It's tradable on the Webull brokerage that I use. By the way, we have a link in the description if you'd like to sign up with Webull. If you use my link to sign up, you get like 12 free shares when you sign up and deposit. So check it out. That's linked in the description down below. But when we talk about the semiconductor ETF, another way to kind of trade and gain exposure to that is also just the NASDAQ, which I'm also long the NASDAQ. So I have longs on QQQ and I have longs on SMH, and I know where I'm wrong on these things. So what I mean by that is I could be wrong about these things. You hear me bullish, but you don't hear me silly bullish, right? Silly bullish meaning I'm not saying these things are going to go up. There's no question they're going to go up, right? I'm saying I have them in my portfolio. I know where they will be excused from my portfolio for a loss, right? If we break support on the NASDAQ, if the NAS does not deliver, if it doesn't perform, I got to kick it out of the portfolio, right? So I have stops on my trade. I know what I'm going to do if I'm wrong. I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose a couple $1,000s, which is, that's a lot of money, but on my portfolio, it is not catastrophic. I trade on a large capital basis. I'm blessed to have been able to build up capital over the 8-9 years of doing what I do and also starting my business here. I've built up capital, so I understand it is a large amount of money, but relative to the account size on a percentage basis, I'm not being reckless, right? I'm still being very relatively efficient, relatively conservative, and efficient with my capital allocation. So I like these areas, but I recognize there are risks involved, right? And you should too. A lot of traders just blow their accounts over and over and over on repeat because they risk inappropriately. It's really the key to surviving this game long term is to risk appropriately. If there's one thing that I would say is the key to profitable trading, step one, the one of the most important things is just risk appropriately. Learn how to do it. Practice back testing enough so that you can see what worst case scenarios typically look like for your strategy. And what I mean by that is you can search up the term, write this down. Stress testing your trading strategy is very important. Henry, thank you very much, but nice try. Not going to give you that answer for a whopping $2 Australian. Which candidate did you vote for, Nick? Fine. You really want me to tell you? I've been saying it all along. I'm coming out in the open with it. I voted for Jerome Powell. Thank you very much for the 2. Appreciate you, my friend Henry. Thank you so much. And thanks to everybody who's hanging out with me here tonight. This has been a lot of fun. I'm still going for a little bit longer. I got more energy. This is fun to watch. I'm feeling a little bit lame because, some of my friends are over with my wife at the place, but I bailed on them guys to come stream for you. So, if you could do me the biggest favor and just thumbs up the stream, I got serious dedication to this YouTube channel. I'm thankful every day to be able to do this and share, my opinion and my passion for this subject with you guys. Not necessarily this subject that we're looking at. This is poorly timed. This passion for markets that I have, it just so happens that this is an event that very much moves the markets. So, yeah, just wanted to say, again, thank you very much for the $2. Not going to tell you who I voted for that easy. If you drop a $1,000 donation, and please, nobody, actually, like, I know you're not going to do that, but I take that back. I'm not going to tell you who I voted for, no matter how much. Do you like Powell as a chair, or would you not mind if somebody replaced him? I think Jerome Powell's done a good job. I think he's done a pretty good job. I think he's remained pretty tactical in his decision making. I don't know about how the 50 basis point cut came into play. I don't know that was the right call. I think it may have looked a little political from his own, criticisms, etc. But I think overall he's done a great job. Let's see what else we got. More votes coming in here. 49%. This is interesting. It's giving you a lean Republican, I suppose. Let me get out of this. Let's go to like Virginia. Here's lean Democrat, Virginia. So how are we? Let's go back to this. Man, this map is crazy. You guys can pull this up if you want. Just go to New York Times election. Texas looking, it says likely Republican here, 2.45 million votes. Georgia is still only 49% reported here. North Carolina leaning for, or it says toss up. I like that it's giving us this little text annotation to go with it for dummies like me who don't fully understand this topic. Toss up between Harris and Trump. Take a look at Virginia, leaning Democrat here. Pennsylvania is a toss up. New Jersey is leaning blue. Ohio leaning red. Illinois leaning blue. Michigan toss up. Love this. It's a very, very cool chart. Checking back with the markets, we got a 2% up move for Bitcoin. Oil's down slightly. Copper slightly down. Look at that. The Russell's up 1.22%. Morning from London. What's the sentiment on the election results so far? Yeah, so it's really too early to tell. I'm going to be honest. We have many remaining states to come in. That being said, it does seem so far to be slightly leaning Trump in some of the battleground states, but it is so early that we can't say for sure, because Ohio is, Ohio was leaning blue. Now it is right down the middle. Pennsylvania is leaning with only 8% of the votes and leaning slightly blue. I mean, it's too early. I'm not going to pretend to give you a good answer here. That being said, the market's reaction, I could tell you, with the Russell flying and Bitcoin flying, that seems, at least for now, again, you can see these things very volatile. This thing could drop way back down if anything swings. But right now, it seems like a slight preference for Donald Trump based on the Bitcoin chart. Right. Again, and then when I say based on the Bitcoin chart, reason I say that is because I've been watching this thing, the odds between, a Trump victory and Bitcoin, and they typically are moving in the same direction. That being said, it's largely because Trump and Vance both have had some like soft words on Bitcoin, right? Cryptocurrency in general. They're also a little bit more in favor of less regulation, which could be potentially skewed or viewed as more positive for Bitcoin per se. Look at this, gold actually shooting back up here now. Silver making a move up as well. Let's see if we had any more data come out here. Doesn't seem to change from when we last looked. What will happen to gold if the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates by 25 to 50 basis points? If the Fed cuts twice for the remainder of this year, that's kind of what's already expected. The bigger question for gold is, are they likely to cut aggressively throughout next year or timidly, slowly next year? That's the question, right? And I think that the bond market is telling you that it thinks that the Fed is still going to cut, but maybe not as many times or as aggressively as previously thought. It's part of the reason why I think that the dollar has potential to stay strong. I mentioned this earlier. I do like the prospect of dollar yen, possible break and retest off of the daily chart here. So if you get something like this, if you get some sort of, break through the highs, I actually like this trade quite a bit for a continued up move on the dollar yen. I believe I'm also getting confirmation on the EdgeFinder's top setups page. Take a look at UJ here. right? So I like USD JPY on the bullish side if we can get breaks and pullbacks. Same thing with dollar CAD. Dollar CAD still, I still favor the bullish side. The only place I start to get interested though would be a bigger pullback down to this 38.2% retracement. So I like this chart, but still a ways from a possible entry for me. But I do favor right now dollar bullish setups if I can find them. My goodness, this thing is so volatile, guys. Bitcoin is just all over the place here. Dollar CAD, pound yen, dollar yen. I'm glad to see the NASDAQ back on this list. Euro yen. Let's see if we get any more latest data here. 53% in Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia. Michigan, could be wrong, but I believe is expected to go blue for Kamala Harris. It is one of the listed swing states, right? Meaning for people who are not so familiar with U.S. elections, swing states refer to states that are up for grabs, meaning they could go red, they could go blue. And historically speaking, they just called Arkansas as we were speaking, which, historically speaking, like Georgia last time went actually blue for Joe Biden, which is my home state, went blue in a sea of red down south. Georgia is, it's like the New York City of the South, really. The Atlanta area is ginormous and growing. It's where this live stream is based out of. A1 Trading is based in Atlanta. Virginia, North Carolina. Donald Trump is still leaning or leading in Georgia. Pennsylvania only. Oh, we just got an update, I think. Did I imagine that? Nope. Ohio's got 41%. It's very split, very close in Ohio. Virginia, very split. Oh, they just called New Jersey. New Jersey was just called for Kamala Harris. Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, New England. Traditionally, this area, let's use colors, why not? Traditionally, this area goes blue. Am I missing any main spots? Oh, there's like some here, I think, that go blue. And then the rest go red. But some of the, swing states are the ones that can kind of be up for grabs. And we've discussed this earlier, and I'm getting better at remembering them, but no promises that I can remember them. Some of the more swing states are Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada. I thought Florida was one, but apparently it is not really a swing state. Ohio, and I think that's most of them. These are likely the states that will decide who the president is, the green ones. The red ones are just pretty much usually red ones. The blue ones are just traditionally blue ones. And the green ones are ones that sometimes go blue, sometimes go red. Trump won Arkansas. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much expected that Trump's going to win all these sort of ones that I marked here. And most likely, the rest of these will fall blue. Colorado probably will go blue. California always goes blue. Oregon and Washington, very blue states. So we'll see. Good night. I totally don't blame some of our friends watching in Europe or the UK, where it is very late right now. Appreciate you staying up and hanging out. Stream has been a lot of fun, something out of the usual for, what I do on my daily live streams. Trying to keep this pretty focused on financial markets, just because I've made my case on this a lot of different times. I think regardless of who wins, stock market is going to celebrate this, not only the stock market, but man, me too. Is anybody else like actually just kind of ready for this election to be over? I like, whether it's one way or the other, I'm kind of just like, hey, I'm ready for those unending, the relentless YouTube ads just dogging on the opposite candidate are so obnoxious to me. It's just such a dark, dreary, every single day, Donald Trump did this, Kamala Harris did this, I support this message. And, it's just, I always look forward to when these things are behind us. And I think that's indicative of how the stock market feels too. Stock market's probably just in general, human psychology is probably like, can we just get a winner and can we just move on? I was planning on scalping gold during this, but the market is just way too volatile. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be super back and forth until, look at gold. Gold now actually shooting higher. Gold dropped by a pretty large chunk here. This is a 5-minute chart that we're looking at. NASDAQ climbed, now falling a little bit here. S&P 500 coming down a little bit. Chinese stocks gapped lower. The euro continuing to tank lower here. Dollar yen just running to the upside. Bitcoin up 2% or so, 2.3%. I'm deep in profit on pound yen. Let's take a look. Pound yen making a big move here. Sort of moving alongside the stock market to a degree. Yen crosses moving higher. The pound is melting. Yeah, look at that. Pound dollar. Woo. Euro dollar. Look at that. Euro dollar just 114 pip move. 100 pip move for pound dollar as well. Let's see if we have anything else reported. We should also, I completely forgot to check this as well. This is arguably just as important, if not possibly more important. This is the Senate and the House, which make up Congress. Flipped one seat. 28 seats not up for election. 38 seats not up for election. The House, 56 to 30. So again, beyond just the president, the other really important elections are the congressional elections, right? %, Pennsylvania going for Kamala Harris here, with only 11% reporting, however. Ohio, only 42% reporting, slightly favored Trump so far. Kamala Harris leading in Illinois, still early here. Michigan leaning with only 6% for Kamala Harris. Georgia says it's leaning red at this time. Virginia, North Carolina. And again, this is, I think that another big deadline that I'm going to stick around for, and then I'll probably peace out, is the next 20 minutes, right? The 9 o'clock. Oh, Kamala Harris wins Illinois. Okay. Kamala Harris just won Illinois. So that's one more state here locked in. Is Illinois, that's got to be a traditional blue state, right? I know there's like a chunk here that historically go blue. So it's like blue, 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 and then the rest red except for Colorado. So yeah. So red. Yeah. I mean, well, just remember that the other thing that we have to remember is that each of these states, of course, have points that they earn for the electoral college. And the thing that you have to remember about that is that some of these states, although they may be smaller on the map, are very large in terms of points. Like California has 54 electoral votes, right? Georgia has 16. Like New York has 28, right? Massachusetts has 11, 17 for Ohio, 15 for Michigan. So, some of the smaller states, like some of these big states, right? Wyoming, this big old state, only has 3 votes. Idaho, 4. Montana, 4. South Dakota. So you get like a bunch of red here, but many of them don't offer very many votes for, the Electoral College. Let's take a look at this really quick. Here's a quick break. Somebody asked about, how this may potentially impact markets, and I let me see. This is my first election of my trading career. Could you please break down how U.S. elections actually affect commodities? Well, I've got this report that I want to look through. It's not necessarily tailored to commodities, but hopefully it gives you a better understanding of how this impacts the stock market, and I'll do my best to sort of translate things to commodities. You get a 4-year cycle. It repeats over and over. You get the post-election, right? Year 1 of a presidency. Year 2 is the pre-midterm, post-midterm, and then pre-election. What you'll see is that the post-midterm, pre-election are the highest average performing years. So year 3 and 4. So next year would be year 1 again. This chart is showing sectors and their average performance. This, to me, just looks like a bunch of blue, a bunch of red on each one. So, and we'll confirm that with this chart, which we discussed earlier. What you can see here is that when you get a Democratic president and a divided Congress, or a Republican president and a divided Congress, the market likes that best. The market actually likes a division of power between the president and Congress. What the market actually does not like is, two of the same, right? Look at this. So the least performing would be this scenario. And interestingly, this scenario. So take that for what you will. Thought that was interesting. Now, generally speaking, for commodities, if you're asking about like oil and gold and copper and things like that, it sort of depends on much more about the economy than the president. So if you get, for example, a real strong economy and inflation stays persistent, commodities look real good. And I kind of lean in that direction, where I think that, government spending is likely to be strong, which could be inflationary. And at the same time, the U.S. economy doesn't seem to be cracking and falling apart, which could signal a sort of support for commodities in general. That would be my opinion. I like commodities for 2025. In fact, I like them. I like industrial commodities, copper, silver, iron ore, infrastructure stocks like, utilities and industrials. I like those areas for 2025. If you continue to get the story of rate cuts and an economy that holds up. I mentioned this chart earlier because I thought it was so interesting. I called this the chart of the day. It's the put to call ratio. Shows a huge demand for puts in the market. Reason that that's uniquely interesting here is that strong demand for puts shows people are uncertain about this election. They're uncertain about what's happening here, and they're buying protection. They're buying puts, right? You can go buy puts on your portfolio in the stock world to buy essentially insurance. You pay a little premium, you can protect some of your portfolio, right? There's a huge demand for that right now, according to the put call ratio. Thought that was really worth mentioning because I actually see that as a potential opportunity to sort of look for, the unwind of that, meaning when the put call ratio comes back down and people relax a little bit, perhaps on the idea that we get a solid footing for who the president's going to be, that is a de-risking event, meaning people now have a known rather than a big question mark. Right now, the reason this is going up, in my opinion, is because the election is a big question mark for people. They don't know who the president's going to be, right? So that unknown is causing people to go buy this. Once the known comes out, let's say you get Kamala Harris, let's say you get Donald Trump. Once you know, the market's going to say, okay, now we can do X, Y, Z. And if you get a known, I've said this pretty much all day long, and I'm, sounding like a broken record and starting to lose my voice on this. I think that what that means is that if you get a known selection for the president, regardless of Trump or Harris, likely gold will come down a little bit, stocks will go up. That is my opinion. I'm not telling you what to do. You should not listen to some guy on YouTube. I am here sharing my opinions, and I could be dead wrong. If you don't get a selected president, like there's uncertainty, question marks about it, and people start to get nervous about, the democratic process of passing power or not, then the opposite effect happens. Stocks probably drop and gold moves higher. But my opinion is I lean more towards the former. I think stocks likely go higher once you get a presidential, nominee selected, and gold probably relaxes a little bit from its recent heater to the upside that it's had. As we saw in the previous two elections, go check the charts. We did it earlier. I'm not going to do it again. But gold in the previous two elections went down after the election came out because people de-risked a little bit, right? They said, okay, we now know we can reset a little bit. I mentioned this earlier like 17 different times, but I want to make sure people who are just joining the show don't miss it. We're doing our biggest sale event of the year. You can currently get 45% off the EdgeFinder and our membership packages, whatever you want access to. If you have not already taken advantage, you can currently get 45% off by sending a direct message to our support team who is standing by during this live stream to give access to anybody who wants it. Get access to the EdgeFinder. It's our software tool. It's a one-time payment to get access. It's a browser-based tool that you can use on your phone, your desktop, etc. It goes with you wherever, and you can keep the market on red alert watching anytime you want. Don't miss out on the sale. Again, that is 45% off the EdgeFinder or our memberships, and you can get access by sending a direct message to our support team here, and somebody from our team is standing by to help. Let's see. Did any other Indiana called for Trump? Illinois called for Kamala Harris. North Carolina, 53% Trump. Virginia, 49.5. These are still early with only 23% reported for North Carolina and 58% reported for Georgia. Pennsylvania, only 13%, but leaning very strongly for Kamala Harris so far. Who won? We are actively watching to see. And it will be an ongoing process, and I won't see the end with you guys. I'll of course be back tomorrow for streaming and stuff. Why is Pennsylvania an important state? That's a good question. So Pennsylvania is an important state because it has 19 electoral votes. So it's this point measure. You need 270. to win the majority in order to become the president. Pennsylvania has 19. Why is it more important than or more interesting than California? Well, because California just has a track record of going blue, similar to, say, Texas has a track record of usually going red. I guess it's, never for certain with any of these things, but very likely to go blue, very likely to go red. Certain states have track records, but certain states are swing states, meaning they don't always go one way. They actually swing back and forth. And we've gone over this a couple of times, but I'm just going to repeat myself. So apologize to people who have just tuned in or been here for a while. Some of the swing states: Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Nevada, New Mexico. I'm missing one, I think. I've done this so many times today that I'm surprised I haven't gotten quicker at this. I think that's the majority of them. So the swing states are likely the ones that usually decide the election, right? So Pennsylvania is a big one. So is Ohio, so is Michigan, so on and so forth. Thank you very much for the 249 euros. Nick, what are your views on crude oil? Yeah, great question. That's a tricky one because if you get, well, actually, this is sort of also recently more bipartisan than perhaps it has been in the past. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have actually both been sort of pro keeping oil prices down by producing more of it in the U.S. Notoriously, Donald Trump has said drill, baby, drill. But the Democrats also seem to be on the same page with producing our own oil at a larger amount to help with the inflation story. And arguably, the U.S. doing it, they're going to do it in a way that is cleaner than many of the other countries out there. So production of oil seems to be something that is increasingly bipartisan, I would say, with my limited scope of knowledge. But it seems like the Democrats and the Republicans both want to pump their own oil at a greater extent to become more energy independent. That does also help with the inflation story, which that is another bipartisan disliked thing, is high inflation, right? And so, low oil prices help with inflation. That's part of the reason why inflation has greatly improved in the last, 2 years, has been oil prices have come down. The U.S. has produced a lot more oil, and that's helped with the story, right? So I think that regardless, oil prices sort of have a little bit of a downward pressure on them from the production side increasing in the U.S. But I will say this, I'm not saying that they go lower either. I would actually say that they probably stay sort of range bound. Because if the economy stays relatively strong, that is a bullish pressure on oil because strong economies in the world demand more oil. But at the same time, more production of oil is a downward pressure on oil. So I'm kind of on the price of oil, right? If they're producing more of it, you see what I mean? It's a supply and demand kind of balance thing. So I don't really have a strong preference on oil at this time. That being said, if you get China, the key to the oil market is China, in my opinion. If you get China starting to really rocket, like stimulus comes back into play, their economy starts to really pick up the pace, then you've got a catalyst here that I think makes oil look strong in 2025. But I don't really see that right now. Like China's had so many, false starts on their stock market and their economy. Like look at all these different times we saw big run-ups in Chinese stocks, huge drop, right? So I have a hard time just jumping into believing that the Chinese stock market is bottom and it's going to rip higher here. Maybe it is. Maybe long-term, you're getting some amazing prices on Chinese stocks, but it's just a hard one for me. Investing in communism, it's not necessarily a political stance. It's just we don't have full transparency on the data like we do, relatively speaking, on U.S. companies, right? So I feel more comfortable investing in U.S. companies or perhaps European companies, where we can get more insights on the stocks and companies and feel a little bit more confident about the reported numbers. I just don't know that we have full trust in the Chinese situation. So it's just hard for me to tell. So that being said, if a more clear trend begins on the Chinese stock market, if we start trending higher, then oil prices probably would follow. When we saw this big run up, oil also had a nice surge to the upside as well. But alongside the Chinese stock market fizzling out, oil prices have as well, right? So there's some correlation here. Thank you, by the way, again, for the 249 euro. I appreciate that very much. Let's see if we have anything else reporting here. I don't think we have anything else. 66% in for Georgia. North Carolina, 26% in. And again, it really is the going back to what we said earlier, the swing states are really where it comes down to. Ohio, only 46%. A lot of these have not reported fully. Georgia, 66% in, and I guess a narrow leadership here for Trump. Not a big leadership. Still very well could go blue here, Georgia, with only 66% of the votes in. North Carolina leaning, well, it's a toss up here because we've only got 26% of the votes in. So with just a few minutes to go, we'll see how that comes in. Maine has started to report. And it will go much later than I will be here, guys. I've got to wrap up. I'm still at the office. It's almost 9 p.m. So I'm just going to sleep here and we'll see you in the morning. Just kidding. But it's been one heck of a stream. Fun to do these events. I've never actually done a live stream dedicated to the election. And it was fun, and I'll never do it again. Just kidding. I probably will next time. And if I was being one of the dramatic people on Twitter, whether red or blue, if there's a country next time, right? My goodness. I don't know if you guys are as tired of it as I am, but my gosh, the like overly dramatic, super politically charged people that come out every 4 years and then you stop hearing about it. I'm ready for that to end. That is actually so annoying when people just are so dramatic about it. I mean, yes, it's very important. Don't get me wrong. I'm not undermining the importance of the election, but it's one of those things. It's like, again, not gonna really go for it, but it's just one of those things. It's such a polarizing topic for good reason. I mean, people's lives are impacted by this stuff, and I don't mean to undermine it in any way, shape, or form, but at the end of the day, I do think that there's some level of, you still control your own universe. And if you really truly believe that your world is going to end or be amazing based on who the president is, I just think you're overthinking it, right? Yes, it matters, but no, it doesn't define your happiness and your success in life, right? So see you once every 4 years. I'll wait until we meet next. If you're one of the 1 in 4 years just for the election. If you are new, some of you guys are probably new stream viewers tonight. I would encourage you, if you enjoy this commentary, trying to keep this thing both markets, mostly markets focused. I'd appreciate it if you subscribe, hit the thumbs up button, do all the YouTube things. I really appreciate it. Georgia's 67% in. And if you wonder why I look at Georgia the most, it's just because it's where I am. If this dot were like a cloud over the US, that's like where I'd be. Somewhere right around there. My favorite state that I've ever visited in the United States, Montana. It's absolutely gorgeous. Anybody been to Montana? Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous state. And to my Canadian friends, Banff, Canada, absolutely gorgeous as well. They look a lot similar. They share a mountain range to a degree. Oh, we have a very special guest here, guys. James, do you want to just briefly let everyone see the kitty cat? Wait, hold on. Yeah, come on in. What's up, James? We got a kitty cat arrival, guys. Wow. Cat's name is Taki, right? Or is it Talk? Yeah, Taki. Taki is a G. Very cool cat. Very awesome guy. We're a cat group here at the office. Thanks, James, for stopping in. See you, Taki. Thanks for coming on. Shout out, James, for putting on such an awesome show. Helped me out with a lot of getting this stuff prepped. Tim and Chandler did a great job with that. So appreciate you guys. And special shout out from Taki. Man, I did not know we were going to luck out like that today. Taki the man. Taki for president, man. Ginger cat. Yeah. I have two black cats and I love my black cats. I think they're just so, they call them voids, right? All black cats are voids. But if I was to get a different one, different color, it would be an orange cat because everybody seems to love orange cats. I don't know what it is about orange cats. They're kind of like insane, but also like very sweet cats, right? Oh, we just got something. New York, 28 electoral votes. So you can see that jumped up the numbers here pretty high for Kamala Harris, 99 to 109. Of course, New York, one of the states that was likely to go blue from the beginning, just like, for example, like Alabama would go red. So yeah, 901 here. I believe there's Nebraska came in just red just now. 99 to 109. 68% still on Georgia. Guys, that is probably, we just had South Dakota. That is probably going to wrap it up for me tonight. I am sure that there are many other live streams that you can quickly join in after this one if you'd like to continue to watch election coverage. To be honest, they probably know more about the election process than I do, but I tried to give you my best guesses in terms of how this potentially impacts the markets as things form. We'll be back tomorrow morning with another live stream. Last thing I'll say, shout out to James for dropping that for us. Got the 45% off sale happening right now for Black Friday. If you want access to the EdgeFinder, to the Discord VIP, the election special is going on right now. And yes, Taki 2028. That's the cat that just made the appearance. Awesome cat. Big fan of Taki over here. And again, guys, if you want access to the EdgeFinder, to the Discord, all that good stuff, trade alongside me and the team, 45% off. Take advantage. Okay, thanks, guys, very much. That's gonna be it. We will call it good there, and I will see you guys back tomorrow morning. Thank you guys for watching.